We'll check back. Thank you, Sean.
Despite growing pressure to step down, the director of the Grant County Rescue Mission will keep his job at least for now. 13 Investigates exposed serious questions about that charity's leadership.
And that undercover investigation prompted an emergency meeting of the mission's board of directors. Our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel explains what's been happening behind closed doors.
How did things get that bad?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that got past me. That's my fault as leadership.
Reverend Tom Ballard says he's willing to take the blame for problems inside the Grant County Rescue Mission. Problems exposed last week by 13 Investigates. Filthy conditions, a huge infestation of bed bugs, and mountains of donations that were stockpiled and neglected. Most of this donated food, clothing, and furniture was so infested by rodents, it was all dumped and burned. 13 Investigates also saw boxes of food and drinks donated to the homeless shelter that were taken by the mission's board president to his church and to his own home. And Reverend Ballard admitted many pizzas donated weekly to the rescue mission ended up at his house, where he fed them to his fish and to his dogs. Our undercover video triggered immediate outrage from health inspectors.
That's scary.
From donors.
They need to know that that's not right.
And from city officials.
I think we're still in a state of shock and kind of stunned by what we saw.
This week, the Rescue Mission's board of directors met inside this conference room for an emergency meeting and to decide whether the executive director would keep his job. At that meeting, Tom Ballard offered to resign if the board wanted him to. By a razor-thin margin, the board voted 5-4 to keep Ballard on board. But sources tell Eyewitness News the board has now placed the director on a 6-month probation, although it's not clear what that probation means. Frustrated by the meeting, one of the board members immediately resigned.
Things can't stay the same, and I do see that as problematic. Things have to change.
That board member is Jim Bowman. Last week, he told Eyewitness News he would not accept the status quo. He says when large donors like Walmart suspend their donations, that should send a clear sign to the board. I ended up resigning because I don't think things are going in the direction they need to go with the current leadership, Bowman told me. The scariest thing to me is we've already lost a lot of donors. I just don't think we're going to get donations back until the director and the board president resign. And they don't seem to understand the depth of the public's anger. I don't know the public will trust the mission again as long as those two are there. But regaining trust is now the mission's focus, and that is what the board spent most of its time discussing behind closed doors. Eyewitness News has learned the board talked about adding a new policy to prevent scenes like this, prohibiting board members from taking or even transporting donations. Board members discussed hiring a company to audit the charity and its finances, something that hasn't happened in more than a decade. And they also talked about personally inspecting the mission once a month to see conditions for themselves and having more interaction with residents to hear any complaints and concerns. The problems exposed by 13 Investigates had been around for months, in some cases even years, without the director or the board doing anything about it.
I didn't know that this was going on. You know, as a board, we did fail. There needs to be more accountability and checks and balances.
Public pressure is not letting up. The Marion Chronicle-Tribune polled some of its readers today. 80% say Tom Ballard should resign. And about 600 people have signed an online petition asking both him and the board president to step down. Organizers will present that petition at a community protest planned for outside the rescue mission later this month. Now, we've reached out to Mr. Ballard. Since the board meeting, he hasn't returned any of our phone calls. John, back to you.